Welcome back to Refit and Sail. My name's George Isted, the Solent Boat Butler. When I am not sailing boats, I refit and repair them for a business. My business is called the Solent Boat Butler Limited. I'm based in the south coast of the UK. But this video is about a new purchase for me and for this channel. If you are a regular viewer of this channel, you'll know that I currently own a Westerly Sea Lord. I affectionately call the boat my floating bungalow. I've sailed that all the way to the Caribbean and back. I've also tried racing it. Not terribly successfully, but that's because the boat is not designed as a race boat. It is a floating cruising platform. I have been on the lookout ever since selling my previous boat, which was a fairly well sorted out Contessa 32. I've been on the lookout for something to replace it with, something that will extend what racing I have already done, both two-handed and single-handed. There's quite a specific list of criteria that I've got on my shopping list, and that narrows down the number of boats available to quite a small number. So I wanted something with a fractional rig. I didn't want any check stays or runners or anything like that on it, because I want to be racing this boat single-handed or two-handed, and that just adds complications. So I want a fairly simple single or double spreader fractional rig on the boat. Ideally I want a deep-ish lead keel, or if it's not a lead keel, I want it to be a cast iron keel with a lead shoe or a lead bulb on the bottom of it. But I very specifically do not want a lead bulb that protrudes forward of the keel, because that just catches weed and that's a total pain. I've been looking at boats which have a fairly modern hull shape, something with a much more performance oriented design, so very much not a cruising boat. But ideally size wise, I'm looking for something that's between 30 and 35 foot, because that keeps both the costs manageable, but it also makes the boat manageable, because as soon as you get a bigger boat, all the loads on everything become harder to manage as a solo or a two-handed skipper. So you're much more likely to kind of push the envelope in a slightly smaller boat, where you know that you're not going to get yourself into a whole heap of trouble when things maybe start going wrong. And guess what, when you're racing hard, when you're pushing a boat hard, sometimes things do go wrong. So it's nice to have a boat where loads are kind of manageable. And also when you start replacing sails and things like that, the sail on a 35 foot boat is considerably cheaper than one on a 40 foot boat. Ideally, I want something with a modern-ish engine. I'm looking at boats that are affordable to me, so nothing's going to be new, but if it's got a modern 2 or 3 cylinder diesel engine, ideally something that isn't out of production for too long, that is a big bonus. I've also been looking at the cockpit layout, so I'm going to be racing solo and two-handed, so I want something where I can reach all of the lines within the cockpit quite easily. So some very modern race boats have very wide cockpits, but they have all the lines led to the helming position. On slightly older boats, the cockpits aren't quite so wide because the boats aren't quite so wide, but it's still important to have a layout that kind of works for where you're going to be sitting, and looking at where the main sheets are, the Genoa winches are, where the clutches are, and all that sort of good stuff. And there's two final very important criterias for me. I like a boat that looks good, looks in proportion. It kind of has to look right. And you know, a lot of modern designs, I hate to say it, they might be quick, they might be fancy, but some of them really don't do it for me at all. And of course, it has to be affordable. I'm doing this on a budget. I'm not a very wealthy YouTubist. I am someone that fixes boats for a living. I do YouTube as a part-time bit of fun, and I do have a fairly small budget for this boat. I've been looking around. There's about 3 or 4 boats that have been on that list. I won't list them all, but I've bought one. I found one. This particular boat has been up for sale for about 6 months. I'm sitting on it right now. If you can guess already, then you're doing very, very well at being a boat spotter. And well, here it is. This is a Stephen Jones designed SJ 320. do professionally is helping people buy or find the boat of their dreams, and I always try and tell them to buy the very best example of a particular boat that they can find, because it always costs more to refit and repair a slightly older, tired example than it is to go and buy one that has been all done or is in good condition to start with. So I have completely ignored that advice, and I have bought the cheapest and dirtiest SJ320 that I can find in all of Europe. It doesn't help that there are actually not that many of these boats around. There is, I think, 3 for sale at the moment in Europe, and this was by far the cheapest and by far the dirtiest, but there were only about, I think, 30 to 35 of these boats actually ever built, so it is quite a rare beast, and I'm very excited to have one of my own. Now, I genuinely do think this is one of the best performance cruisers that you could buy from the era around the mid-90s to the early noughties. From a performance point of view, I know this sails like an absolute witch. They've got a really good reputation. They do quite well under IRC. There's a few on the river here and a few others dotted around that I know can and have done and continue to do very well on the racing circuit. They've also got great accommodation down below. They've got twin aft cabins. They're called double cabins. Big singles, you could do a double for a night or two in there. It's got a double forward V berth, 2 berths in the centre of the boat, nice fold out table, separate heads and shower, and it's a really great layout. Stephen Jones, when he put this boat together on the drawing board, did a fantastic job of designing the space to be usable. He's made the most of every square inch of this boat in terms of accommodation and storage, and it's really nicely designed and really well built. Now, I am desperately excited to get this boat on the water and get it sailing and feel it move under my feet, but this channel's called Refit and Sail, and there's a reason this boat was the cheapest one in Europe. It had basically been abandoned for the last 3 years. Someone's given it a cursory kind of jet wash to get it sold, but it is filthy, and there are lots and lots of small and some bigger jobs that do need to be taken care of before it can go in the water. This is going to be something of a rolling restoration. To use a car analogy, I can't do everything. I can't physically afford to do all the things that I want to do on this boat up front, but I'm going to do enough to get it in the water and get it usable, do the stuff that has to be done ashore, then I can continue doing some work afloat. So let me show you a few of the things that need fixing. Starting in the cockpit, here is the tiller. This is a tiller steered boat, and this moves, but it's very stiff. When I first went to go and see this boat, I couldn't actually turn the tiller. It was absolutely sea solid. So I'm not sure if the bearings have swollen or whether they're just full of dirt and crud. Probably the latter, but I need to take the tiller off. I need to drop the rudder out of the boat and inspect those bearings and see if they're usable or if I need to replace them. Pretty sure these need some attention and leak. These instruments are going to require a bit of attention. They're all pretty old. I strongly suspect that these windows are a little bit leaky. Yeah, that needs sorting. There's the lead bulb, and that is the cast iron fin keel, and it kind of needs a little bit of rust cleaning and a bit more fairing in just to make this all look decent again. Same deal up at the top here. It is a little bit grim where the keel attaches to the hull. Oh, she is so dirty. Need to finish the anti-foul removal because there is quite a bit of old stuff on there that needs to be taken off. So the boat has flush closing seacocks. When these are closed, they are completely flush with the flow of water over the hull, but they haven't been serviced for a very long time. They don't leak, but I've got to work out how to take them apart, service them and put them back together again. Well, that needs to be replaced, as does the anode, which is basically not there anymore. Please do remember to like and subscribe, and it makes a big difference to this channel. And if you want to be super awesome, there is a link down in the description where you can buy me a beer. And I do need some beers because these are horrible cracks that I need to fix. So one of the things I talked about being a priority was the layout of the cockpit being suitable for single and short-handed sailing, and this is one of the reasons I particularly like this boat. It is because I can sit here, I've got the helm in my hand, I've got the primary winch right here for the genoa, and I've got the main sheet right there and the traveller right here. So everything is within kind of reaching distance. The only thing that isn't is the backstay, which is obviously off the boat at the moment, but I'm going to be able to lead that through some blocks maybe to here, so I can tweak the backstay again without having to go to the back of the boat and do too much running around. Everything is at hand. The engine on the boat is a Volvo 2020, which is a cracking little Perkins based engine sold by Volvo Penta. But one of the things I've got to do on this boat is it's a sail drive boat. There's a diaphragm around the sail drive leg, and we don't know how old that is, no idea, so that really needs to be swapped out. The engine also, I know it runs pretty well actually, because I had a play with it when the boat was afloat, when I had a look at it, but I think I'm going to give it a good service, replace everything that I think might need replacing in terms of service items, belts, water pump, impeller, all that sort of stuff. Might take the heat exchanger apart and clean out the heat exchanger internally, because they can get a bit furry inside, and just make sure I've got a nice solid engine that I can rely on. It comes with the most important piece of a boat, a kettle, and I'm actually quite pleased to see it has a proper cooker with an oven, because I quite like chucking things in the oven when I'm out racing, if I'm doing a long overnight passage. And it has a carbon fibre spinnaker pole. That's really old. That's really old because it doesn't even have DSC. That's kind of old, but not that important. I'll be amazed if that works. That I haven't seen. I haven't seen one of these in a very long time. So as you can see, there's a fair amount that needs doing on this boat over the next couple of months, but the plan is, it is August at the moment, the plan is over the next couple of months to do what's necessary to get it in the water. Then I want to do some sailing through the tail end of the year, maybe over winter a bit, just to get a feel for the boat, get used to it, just see what other things need fixing, and then the plan is to start racing it in the 2025 season. One thing that I have been looking forward to doing ever since I picked this boat up and had it delivered here by road is to give it a bloody good clean. It had a cursory jet wash, I think, as part of the sales process, but it is pretty filthy on deck. Down below, everything needs washing through, all the lockers need to be emptied. I'm going to take everything off the boat and then only put the stuff back onto the boat that I actually genuinely want, because I want to keep this boat as light as possible. So it's time to break out the pressure washer, the buckets, the sponges, the scrubbing brushes, and get busy with these hands and make it nice and clean. Well, it's taken all morning, but the deck is looking an awful lot better. It was a mixture of pressure washing it and using a scrubbing brush that goes on the end of my electric drill, which is really good for getting into the non-slip. And I've simply used some bathroom cleaner on this, no special yachty products needed. It is going to get dirty again in the yard, so there's no point in going too crazy, but it's nice to be able to walk around. And effectively, I'm making it dirtier with my feet and my clothes when I sit on the deck. I'm not making it cleaner, so that's a good place to be and a good place to start. Well, I'm feeling a little bit done with cleaning cleaning for today, but the deck is looking really miles better. It's looking really good actually, and the hull, as you have seen, has had a really good wash down and is looking miles better as well. In fact, I think I recorded it, I couldn't help myself. I did a little bit of polishing up on the starboard bow, just like a couple of meters, and it's looking really good, really pleased. I mean, this is a 30-year-old boat now, or 29-year-old boat now, and the gel coat, because race boat, is quite thin. They didn't put tons and tons on there, but it's in pretty decent condition. So I've given it a quick buzz over with a medium compound. It's a one-step compound and wax, and looks good. I just need to build up the energy to do the rest of the boat. But there is one more thing I'm going to do on this video before it finishes. At the moment, the old name for this boat is on the transom, and I want to change that name. So it's got vinyl graphics across the back there, and I want to remove them. It is going to get a new name. But to get the vinyl graphics off, I'm going to go and grab a heat gun and just gently warm up those letters and see if I can peel them off. I'm not superstitious about changing the name at all. This is not the original name for the boat, so I will be putting a new name on, which will be its third name, so I don't really worry too much about changing boat names. My other boat, the Westerly, that is on its third name as well, I think. So you know, if a boat is on its original name, then I genuinely do think it's quite nice to keep that. But when a name has changed already, then I think it's fair game to go and choose a new name if you are not keen on the name of your boat. And actually, I've never named a boat before. Well, no, that's not true. I've built a couple of dinghies and I've named them, but I've never named a big boat before. So this is quite nice to be able to go through and think about what I want to call it. And I have actually made a decision and may announce it at the end of this video. We'll see. Well folks, it's the next day, and I'm afraid this isn't a particularly good shot of this letter here, but this is the transom of the boat, and I have removed all of the letters apart from this one, which you can probably only just see. The UV has really attacked these vinyl graphics. They are in really poor condition, all cracked and horrible. So as I said probably earlier in the video, which I recorded yesterday, they need to be replaced anyway, but we're going for a new name, and I just thought I'd show you, if I can, how I remove these. Sometimes if they're in good condition, they come off in one piece. You can just warm them up with your heat gun, and you can get a corner and peel them off. But in this case, they are so UV damaged, they are coming off in lots and lots of pieces. It's useful to have your hand kind of on the boat so you can feel how hot it is, and you can get it reasonably warm, but you need to make sure you don't burn the gel coat, because if you get it too hot it will discolour, and it will be discoloured forever. Gel coat does not like getting hot, particularly white gel coat. It's really obvious. So I'm just warming up the whole area, but I'm going to start with this section down here, get a decent amount of heat into it, which won't take too long because it is a warm day. And now I've got a stick with a sharp edge on the end, and I can just get that under the edge of this, hopefully. Nope, I haven't got it warm enough. Let's try a bit more heat on this. Of course, this was working beautifully yesterday when the camera wasn't on, but now it is. It's going to be a right pain. Right, I'm very careful about how much heat I put into this. There we go. Get it under the end, and if I pull it off, it comes off in pieces like that. I'll put that in my pocket. But as soon as it starts becoming difficult to remove, you need to apply a bit more heat again, because it cools down. Yeah, you see that's already coming apart in tiny pieces, so a bit more heat. I'm sorry I can't give you a better shot of this, but there's just no way to mount a camera very easily without buying some very expensive suction mounts. So I've got a very cheap suction mount, which is also tied onto the boat, so that when the suction goes, I don't lose my phone into the mud, which is just down there, and I'm standing on the very top rung of a set of steps. It's all rather precarious. So I'm doing my best for you, but hopefully you can see kind of what I'm doing. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a R-shaped lump of adhesive here, which is the backer for the vinyl, and that comes off fairly easily with gallons of acetone, or just, you know, some on a rag, but you want quite a wet rag because it dissolves the adhesive. Acetone is not particularly good for your fingers, so if you're doing this, I would strongly advise you wear nitrile gloves, thick nitrile gloves, because it will even eat thin nitrile gloves. I'm a trained idiot, professional idiot that is, and so because I'm only doing this little bit, I'm not going to wear gloves, but that is becoming kind of like adhesive filled, so I'll go for a bit more. Problem with acetone is it flashes off really quickly, so I keep having to add it to the cloth because it just evaporates like crazy. If you're thinking that this transom is slightly flexible, you're right, it is. This boat doesn't have an open transom, it has a proper transom across the back of it, but it's very thin. It's not really a structural part of the boat, this, so it can be very thin, so that's not a problem. Traditionalists probably wouldn't like how out this kind of flexes at the back here, but it's perfectly normal and perfectly okay for this transom to flex as it does. Here we go. Now that letter is all done, I'm going to get a fresh piece of tissue. I've got slightly sticky hands now because the acetone has melted the adhesive and then the acetone has left it on my fingers, so I'm going to clean them in a minute, but before I do, I'm going to give this with a fresh cloth a wipe all over the area where the letter was. There goes my camera. Well, I am very pleased I tied that bit of string onto my camera, because otherwise it would now be in the mud, which is the riverbank behind me. But anyway, there is no R here now. You can see it's all clean. So the only thing I might do, because these stickers have been on for quite a long time, there is a bit of a halo, a bit of a raised area where the stickers were, because the UV has got to the gel coat around it and it hasn't got to the gel coat that was under the stickers. So what I might do is go over this with some 2000 grit wet and dry before I polish it, because it will just flatten this down and remove any remaining bits of kind of raised gel coat that would be otherwise maybe a little bit obvious. Well, my friends, that is the name off the transom on this SJ320, and the question is, what name am I going to put in its place? I have thought about many names over the last couple of years. If I get the opportunity to rename a boat again, it's a very special thing. It's the ability to almost like name a child. I'm very attached to a lot of the boats that I own because I put so much into them. Actually, the boats that I work on as well, you put a little bit of yourself into all the boats that go through a refit, particularly if it's a big refit like Lottie has been. So, you know, there is a bit of a sentimental attachment to the boats, and the names do mean something. I have a short list, and I'm going to make you wait for a future episode. Maybe next episode I'll tell you the new name of my new SJ320. I think that's enough for now. That's introduced my new project boat to you. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Do stay tuned, do hit the subscribe button. Subscribing to this channel genuinely does make a difference to how much money I make out of YouTube, how much money I make out of sponsors and things like that. So it really does help the channel grow. So please do subscribe. Please do hit the like button as well. That makes a massive difference too. And if you want to financially support the show, there is a link down in the description. This boat could potentially be financially ruinous to me if I do all the things that I really want to do but can't necessarily afford, because I am a man of relatively simple financial means. So do stay tuned, do subscribe, do like, and I will see you on the next one for more fun with the SJ.